The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Obama, Senator Barack Hussein Obama, is about to come a cropper in the United States. So it's been a pretty good year. For those who don't know the problem with Obama, and by the time this is viewed on the internet, it will probably be all over the newspapers. He was born in Mombasa in Kenya. It's very interesting because that sits on British intelligence files. His father was close to the Mau Mau. He used to run guns and money into the Mau Mau. He was a link man between the Mau Mau and the German intelligence network in East Africa. And Obama was born in Mombasa in about 1960. His mother, we think, was one of Obama Sr.'s many mistresses. And the woman who is now dead, who is allegedly his mother, wasn't pregnant in July 1961, but Barack Hussein Obama claims to have been born in Honolulu on August 4th, 1961. Now, we have a doctor here, and Dr. Lister would, I think, confirm. I'm not a medical man, but my understanding is that if a lady's giving birth in August, we like to see her pregnant in July. Since it's been established that his alleged mother, wasn't pregnant in the July, his claimed birth on 4th August does seem to be coming under a certain degree of scrutiny. It's also nice to have a DNA relationship with your parents, and the DNA test that was done in respect of Barack Obama's claimed grandparents, I understand the CIA were unable to obtain a match. The CIA did it very well. I believe they did it at a fundraising dinner, and it's absolutely marvellous. You want to do a DNA test, nothing better than a glass of water. Because what you get with a glass of water, you get saliva for your DNA, and you've got fingerprints as well. It's an all-in-one, do-it-yourself, DIY DNA testing kit. And all the CIA did was slip in. You don't have to ask somebody to do a DNA test. They just took away a couple of glasses. Bag one for grandpa, bag one for grandpa, do a DNA test, no link, end of case. It's quite funny. Rudy Giuliani's people, this is an aside, but I think people are interested because Obama is making a lot of headway at the moment. Rudy Giuliani's people bought me lunch last year because they knew I knew, and Rudy's people were fascinated by this, and he decided to sit on it apparently and hold the intelligence back in the hope that he would be the Republican candidate, because he was then being talked about as the front runner, and then he could bounce it on the Democratic Party after the convention in August, which is absolutely crazy. I've been talking to Hillary Clinton's people who seem quite interested. So I don't think it'll be staying secret.
I was giving an intelligence briefing, an on-the-record briefing, to an invited audience that consisted of intelligence specialists, Eurosceptics, some political figures. The UKIP party were there. There was somebody from the Tory party. There was there were naval intelligence there. It was a mixed audience of intelligence types, Eurosceptics. And The Marble Research Group is a splendid initiative convened by a 100-year-old intelligence officer called Harry Beckoff, whose 100th birthday was last week, and I went down Saturday before last. I went down to celebrate it with him. Harry was the guy who took the decrypts on Rommel's actions and intent out to General Montgomery and personally briefed in General Montgomery prior to the Battle of El Alamein on Rommel's intentions. Heavy duty player, yeah. Harry Beckoff is a great intelligence officer. He's written 2 books. Wonderful man. Please give these books all the publicity you can. Harry Beckoff, B-E-C-K-H-U-O-U-G-H, Colonel. And Colonel Beckoff is the chairman. He's a distinguished-looking man, and he is the chairman you will see sitting behind me in the meeting. There is a very nice ex-naval intelligence type called Bill Woodhouse. I think he was a commander who served in Korea. The men you see on the platform beside me are very distinguished World War II and Korea War veterans.
Well, now, let me ask you this. From what I understand, certainly your credentials are more than impeccable from what I can see.
Thank you.
Well, I mean that. I immediately tried to find out who the hell you were when I saw the video.
Yeah, don't blame me. Yeah, you all did the right thing. Yeah, exactly. I've been around. I mean, I flew out. Your guys flew me out to the Enterprise in 2006.
Well, it looks like to me you've got a tremendous amount of, what do you guys call it over there, MI5, MI6, or whatever?
Oh yes, I'm in touch with everybody, a whole alphabet soup. There isn't anybody in alphabet soup that I don't know, frankly.
Yeah, I would have bet money on that.
Oh, look, there's at least 3 agencies in the United States I've never talked to, but, you guys have agencies created all the time. I have talked to DNA, DEA, ONI, NSA, CIA, FBI, you name it. I mean, there's not a major U.S. agency I've not talked to.
Well, it's very easy to get to talk to an agency today. All you have to do is make a public statement that say Barack Obama is a piece of crap, and all of a sudden you got black helicopters and SUVs pull up to your door. I mean, it's an amazing thing.
I know, it's turning into a police state. It's very sad.
Yeah, well, it is. And it is very sad. And that brings about a couple of points I just wanted to clarify with you. I mean, your interview, to me, having been in this quote-unquote questioning his legitimacy since 2008, I've never seen, and neither have any of my friends who are very active in the community, they had never seen your video until it was posted this morning.
Yeah, well, it looks as though it's gone viral. I mean, I've had, my email address isn't particularly public, and I've had 4 emails, I think, from the States in the last hour or two. Because remember, I'm an intelligent, I'm not a spy, I've never been a spy. I just bailed out a nice Chilean dictator called General Pinochet 15 years ago, and then I acquired a small spy practice, and then I got heavily involved in the world of intelligence after 9/11. I started off pretty much at the top, because I went straight in with Henry Kissinger, Henry Kissinger rang me at home in 1999. Sarah wasn't home when Henry Kissinger rang, but I picked up the phone late one Friday night about 11 o'clock, and it was Henry Kissinger. And that doesn't happen to everybody. It's not that many people who can say, oh, I was having a quiet night in, and then Henry Kissinger rang.
Well, that would scare me, number one. Number two,
he's nice. No, Henry's delightful. I said, can I call you Henry? He said, yes, can I call you Michael? He's a charming man, Henry Kissinger. He's on the other side.
I'm sure he is. I mean, he's a master diplomat if there ever was one.
Yeah, exactly. No, charming man on the other side.
Now look. I'm the kind of guy who likes to cut to the chase. Yeah. Have you got hard evidence of that CIA DNA test on the water glass?
Do I have the DNA? No way. The DNA test went into the director's safe. What happened was this. I advised the CIA boys had me around for lunch at the Connaught Hotel in London. No, Claridge's. Sorry, I've had tea at the CIA. Depends who you talk to in the CIA. It depends what their expenses budget is. But they tend to use Claridge's or the Connaught, which are both handy for the CIA London station. London station and the DIA invited me around to lunch at Claridge's, and they split the bill. I think Pentagon paid half, CIA paid half. And I told them, all to do with Obama, because it looked as though Obama was going to be the Democratic candidate. I said, he can't be. He is born in Mombasa. How do you know that? Well, I've got old Africa hands as sources. I used to sit on the Immigration Appeal Tribunal. We had a number of Africa hands on the tribunal. I know a lot. I've never been to Africa, but I know an awful lot about Africa. One of my sources was in the SAS in Africa. Another source was a mercenary who used to do wet jobs for MI6 in Africa and also for the South Africans. I have got sources inside BOSS. I have talked to the South African government. I have sources inside Nairobi intelligence, and I have talked to journalists who've been on the ground making inquiries for me. I had a number of African sources. I actually have met at least two African heads of state. And I first met an African head of state, 25 years ago. Now, so my sources in Africa go fairly high up. And some of it goes back to the old anti-apartheid era when I was heavily involved in anti-apartheid. I knew that he'd been born in Mombasa. We knew, and I knew the MI5 and MI6 files said he's Mombasa. I briefed in CIA, and they said, how do we prove it? And I said, look, when we had the same problem, we're off the record, I assume.
Your question was to me?
Yes, we're off the record.
No, we're not.
Oh, are we live?
No, we're not live.
No, okay, well, if we're on the record, I better be careful. A British politician, there was an issue about whether he'd given birth to a baby or his wife had given birth to a baby or not. The father was actually another member of the cabinet. And MI5, I advised MI5, their budget was coming under pressure. I told the boys in 5 how to do it. Because I sat as an immigration judge, I knew all about DNA. I was the second lawyer in the world to use DNA fingerprinting 29 years ago, 1985. I explained all about DNA fingerprinting to MI5, all about low copy, and I said, look, all you need to do, boys, is to have two wine glasses, fingerprints and saliva, and you'll be able to do a comparison.
Of course.
They set up a legal dinner. I was there. MI5 were there. They had some tame Indian caterers from Southall in the west of London, some Sikhs. They had some very nice Sikh tame caterers who were shopping dodgy Sikhs in Southall. The caterers arranged for the cabinet minister and the wife of the other member of the cabinet. Their wine glasses were put into evidence bags, and MI5 did a DNA test. It came up positive. The report went straight into the Director General's safe. I actually knew the Director General at the time. It was Eliza Manning and Buller. It went straight into Eliza's safe. She then negotiated a 50% increase, I think it was, in MI5's budget. And all I got was a sodding letter. No, wouldn't they? MI5 didn't even invite me around to the lunch.
Well, wait, didn't they give you a rubber chicken dinner? And
yeah, I didn't even get the dinner was actually an Indian dinner, which is why we had Indian caterers, but I didn't even get a bloody satsuma for MI5 for that. I've had a couple of favours done for them, but nothing to justify. MI5 are deeply in my debt because that budget wasn't just a year increase; it was a year-on-year increase. It's compared.
And so they used the same principle on the grandfather and Obama.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we did Obama. I said, look, boys, this is how we did it with ex-politician and his wife and the other cabinet member who turned out to be the father. I said, look, they said, how the hell do we DNA a presidential candidate? I said, how do we get near them? I said, easy. Just go to a dinner and get the wine glass for the president, or the candidate, as he then was, and get the grandma's water glass. The grandma was drinking water. And I believe that's what they did. The director of the CIA then was Mike Hayden.
So he knows the truth.
Oh, Christ, yes. Mike did the dirty on me. What I was trying to do was to get Obama forced out of the race. Mike thought, I can negotiate an extension to my appointment as director because Obama was going to get rid of Hayden. Hayden negotiated with Obama because Obama reports to the Germans told Obama. Hayden and Obama did a deal. Mike is a nice guy. He's a friend of several friends in NSA. I'd actually backed Mike for his appointment as Director of National Intelligence. Mike cut a deal with Obama because Obama had something on Mike. Hayden had something on Obama. Hayden stayed on at CIA. Hayden thought that I couldn't get through to Hillary Clinton. Well, I did. And Hayden shafted me. He shafted America, basically. He shafts you guys. He shafts me. I got diddly squat out of CIA for that. Diddly squat. Not even a plane ride and a Gulfstream to Langley and an invite into the George Bush Intelligence Center. The U.S. Navy flew me out to the Enterprise and treated me with the greatest of consideration. Did I get anything from CIA? All I got was a sodding lunch. It was a nice lunch, but that was all. It was in the Gordon Ramsay restaurant in Claridge. It was a very nice lunch, but that was it. Hayden thought that I couldn't get through to Bill Clinton because he thought Michael's right-wing, Bill's a Democrat, Hillary's a Democrat, he'll never get through to Hillary. What he forgot was that Hillary's a lesbian. A dear friend of mine, now dead, sadly, wonderful man called Leland Owens, I can give his name now because he's no longer with us. Leland, the most charming, wonderful man with his own connections to the agency, knew one of Hillary's girlfriends. I got through to Hillary's girlfriend. I first briefed in Bill Clinton's people in Washington and said, look, you need to know about this CIA, the DNA test the CIA have done, and you better be aware that Obama is not eligible, and he's also reporting to the Jerrys. You need to back off fast with Obama. Bill was briefed in. Bill decided to sit on it. Bill held out on Hillary, thinking I could never get through to Hillary. I got through to Hillary through Leland, a charming man, and Hillary then went to Bill. There was a huge bust-up between Bill and Hillary. Hillary sent Bill to the West Coast to campaign for 3 weeks. There was a big, if you look at the 2008 election campaign, there was a time when Bill and Hillary had a major bust-up. That was because Hillary found out from me, the intelligence that Bill had been holding out on her on Obama. Unfortunately, the Clintons have a trail of dead bodies behind them going all the way from bloody Little Rock to Washington and over to Dubrovnik, in former Yugoslavia, where they sanctioned, Bill Clinton sanctioned the wiping out of one of his cabinet members, a guy called Ron Brown, who was whacked by the Germans setting up a fake radio beam so the bloody airplane flies into a mountaintop.
The man with the bullet hole in the back of his head.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a disgrace. It was a disgrace. They probably did whack him. I think what happened was that the Germans sent a team in. I think he survived the crash and they whacked him. They sent a team in to assassinate him, make sure he was dead and whack him. I think the bullet went in after the crash.
That's what we've always learned and come to know here in America.
Yeah, plane crashes. Commerce Secretary is still alive. Germans send in a death squad. And they shoot up the primary target is Brown, and Brown is shot while he's wounded. Very nasty, typically German. They often shoot you when you're wounded. The guy probably would have died anyway, but it's typical of the Germans to finish him off like that. Now, the Clintons, the Germans have so much on the Clintons that Obama was able to cut a deal with Hillary whereby she became Secretary of State. She agreed not to use the DNA report. She became Secretary of State, but she then ratted on Hayden because Hayden had held out on Bill and her. She got her own back on on Mike Hayden by putting her man in, Leon Panetta, and that's how Leon became head of CIA. Now, Leon would never have been made head of CIA if I hadn't armed Hillary with intelligence on Obama's place of birth. It was that powerful. Did I get diddly squat from Leon Panetta? I didn't even get an invite into the George Bush Intelligence Center, let alone lunch. I mean, Jim Woolsey was class people. Woolsey was class. Woolsey would have me around for lunch. Woolsey, I've actually had meals with Woolsey, and Woolsey would always buy you lunch. Very nice man. And Woolsey treated me like a gentleman. He is a gentleman. And Woolsey and I still talk to each other occasionally. I haven't talked to Woolsey for a while, but if I go to a meeting and Woolsey's there, we'll say, "Hi Jim, how are you?" And vice versa. "Hello Michael, how are you doing?" Woolsey would have treated me quite differently. Panetta was standoffish. I got some respect from State Department. They knew that I'd armed Panetta with his intelligence. Armed the Clintons. When Hillary was much nicer. Hillary, to give her due, the State Department always treated me with civility, which I highly valued. It's just professional. It's nice. I was treated with great friendship and courtesy by the State Department when Hillary was Secretary of State. And everybody in the State Department I was dealing with, I was obviously dealing with the intelligence boys in the BNR. The Bureau of Intelligence and Research. It is BNR, isn't it? I keep forgetting the alphabet soup.
I believe so.
Yes, the Bureau boys. I was talking to the Bureau of Intelligence and Research. They obviously work closely with Langley. all the bureau boys knew that Hillary was only Secretary of State because I had given her the intelligence on Obama. So I was treated, pretty respectfully. Other people were looking at this and thinking, what the fuck is going on? How's Michael getting into the State Department in a Democratic, And I was able to, Hillary, thanks to my intelligence, Hillary was able to pursue an independent U.S. foreign policy. And Obama was really pissed at that because he wanted Hillary to do all sorts of stuff that Hillary refused to do. And there was a Mexican standoff between Obama and Hillary. But I didn't get, the State Department Hillary could have done a lot more for me. Didn't. And this video has now got into circulation, which is something I did in 2010, I think. And it might even have been earlier. It might have been 28. There were two videos, one in 28.
It had to be because you said in the video that Tony Blair was still in office.
Oh, it goes back to when Blair was PM. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that would have had to have been 2007, I believe.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, because there was a changeover in 2007. No, you're quite right. Yeah, no, that's absolutely right, because the changeover happened during the McCann kidnap case on which I worked.
Well, I mean, I'm simply amazed too about what you said about Rudy Giuliani. I mean, that was fascinating in itself to me, because you even made the comment that he wanted to run for the presidency and he had the information and he sat on it.
Yes, I don't know why Rudy sat on it. They may have had some. I do know why. I remember. Nah. Rudy had problems with his wife. Rudy wasn't shagging Mrs. Rudy. They were able to lean on Rudy. Rudy had big problems. In fact, he divorced, didn't he? Rudy had the mistress. Yeah, they had the mistress.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah, exactly. I like Rudy. I mean, I never met him, but I thought he was a good mayor of New York. I think he did very well on 9/11. Sarah agrees. Rudy Giuliani, mayor of New York on 9/11. Good people. Yes. No.
Well, the one great thing he did is he cleaned that city up pretty well.
Yes, he did. No, I thought Rudy Giuliani was a great mayor. I knew he had the report, and I can't now recall who told me, but I did have a very high-level contact in New York City. I had contacts in NYPD counterterrorism, but I also had a very high contact who was in touch with Governor Pataki. Well, there was a Pataki who was governor of New York, wasn't he?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, Pataki, my contact was, they were trying to put together a multi-billion-dollar development plan for a crappy part of Staten Island. And it involved, they were going to pay to extend the subway to Staten Island. I can't remember the detail of it, but they were in touch with Rudy and they were in touch with Pataki. And word reached me that Rudy was aware of this DNA test. And Rudy had his own intelligence contacts. And then I thought Rudy was going to go public, but they sat on him. That's the problem, you see. If they've got something on you, then you can't go public.
Well, I mean, I go back to the most simple, basic question I guess any man, particularly any American, could ask. How in the world could a man who is not eligible to be president of the United States, who is not even a natural-born citizen...
Well, he's not even an American citizen. That's
correct. How in the hell could he become the president of the most powerful country in the world?
Well, easily, because he was backed by, because America isn't the most powerful country in the world. You're only the most powerful country militarily. The world's most powerful intelligence power is Germany, and Germany runs Washington because they run Obama. He had German backing. Remember, Bush 41 works for the Germans, so Bush 41 works for the Germans, Obama...
Well, I remember that. Yes, I do remember that, and that's been very well documented in our history here.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, if I end up dead, you can put all this out on the internet, don't worry. One of the reasons I'm open is that it keeps me alive, and I have conversations like this that people can't use when I'm alive. If I end up dead one morning, assume I've been bumped off by the Jerrys, and you feel free to broadcast all over the internet exactly what I've said.
Well, listen, the same thing applies from my end to you.
Exactly. Yes, that's how I stay alive. It's called life insurance.
The one thing about me is I refuse to let my daughter and my grandson grow up under communism. I just will not let that happen.
Well, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And why the hell should Obama wreck America? But Obama's backed by the German DVD, therefore he's in a very powerful position. He's backed by Bush 41. and he's in effective control of the administration in Washington, and he's got control. The one area he hasn't got control of is the Pentagon. You often see the Pentagon following a totally different foreign policy and a totally different policy to the president. That's because the Pentagon have got the DNA test, because I gave it to the Pentagon. And that's why, one of the reasons why I'm flown out to aircraft carriers, and I get treated very nicely by the Pentagon, because the Pentagon used the DNA evidence to negotiate their budget. And they were
that might be the main reason that he's purging the military of all their top officers.
He is conducting a little purge, yes, the little bastard. But he's got to be very careful, because the Pentagon is sitting on that DNA test. And the Pentagon got it from Mike Hayden. Mike was very reluctant to part with it, but I gave the Pentagon boys and the NSA the goods on Mike. They had a hold on Mike, and I think they were able to screw the DNA test out of Mike. But the Pentagon also had their own sources. They looked at his scholarship, his Fulbright scholarship, and his time at Occidental, and the Pentagon were able to access the mother's medical records. And the Pentagon independently concluded, after I told them, they went and did their own research, and they verified what I told them. He was definitely born in Mombasa. They also talked to our boys, because MI6 and 5, we were monitoring Obama's father. We know where he was born, because the bastard's father was in the Mau Mau. We had a file on him going back to the Mau Mau period. We had a file on the
Do you believe that Senior is indeed his natural father?
Senior travels on a German passport. I'm
talking about Barack Obama Sr., the one who's dead now.
Barack Obama Sr. was murdered in Kenya in 88, wasn't it?
But you do believe that was Obama's real father?
Yes, there's no doubt about the father. And the problem is with the mother. The mother is a mistress of the father, obviously, in Mombasa, and the guy was born in Mombasa in about 1960, I think August 1960. I think the date of birth is correct, 4th of August. The year is wrong. I think he was born 4th August the previous year. The mother was a mistress of the father that we had on file. MI5 and MI6 had him on file, shagging this mistress. And I think the mistress may have been Asian, Muslim mistress, possibly Asian. Certainly some Arab blood in her.
Jeez,
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And he's not a U.S. citizen.
You've seen that anyone who discusses this topic is called every name.
Yeah, I know. It's the usual abuse. Abuse. You don't like what they're saying, so there must be a nut or a crank. Yeah, it's the old, argumentum ad hominem. It's the weakest form of argument. It's not even a form of argument. The people who adopt that approach just betray the weakness of their position.
Well, you also have the fact that there have been 2 documents uncovered that Nancy Pelosi signed on the behalf of the Democratic National Committee, and both of the documents were different. Yeah. And in one document, this is from my memory, I don't have them in front of me, but in one document, they declared that Obama was eligible under the Constitution. Yeah. And then in the second document, they just declared that he was eligible and didn't even mention the Constitution. Yeah. Those documents were found, and they were riveting in themselves, and absolutely nothing has happened. And well, you appear to me to be a very honest man, and that's what struck me in your video that I saw this morning. I mean, it's the first thing I saw when I woke up. I was still going, "Oh my God, I must be dreaming." Yeah. Well, I've never been scared of the FBI. I've never been scared of the CIA. I've never been scared.
The FBI are pussies. They throw their weight around a bit, but they're pussies, really. I quite like the FBI. God bless them. They do their best. They're not very bright.
I have real good friends in the FBI.
Oh, I value some friendships of people who ex-agents, and I had a particularly good working relationship with someone in one of the field officers. On the whole, my relations with the FBI, they're not terribly bright, and they can be a bit snooty. They tend to think that they're brighter than they are. I find, dealing with the FBI, I just find them a bit standoffish. There's always this hint of menace when you talk to the FBI. Like, if you don't like what you're saying, we'll whip the handcuffs out, and we'll cut you off. They are just a little bit too full of themselves. It's much much easier dealing with the CIA or NSA. NSA are much nicer, of course, than the CIA. They're real gentlemen up at Fort Meade. They're very nice people.
Oh, yeah, we're just tickled to death with the NSA here in America. I know your government is, too.
Oh, no, the NSA do good work on a far too meagre budget. They're wonderful people, and they've been getting some very silly criticism.
Well, listen, I look at it realistically as possible. As long as they're monitoring everybody, the only problem...
Well, they're not monitoring. They're monitoring bad guys. I mean, they're out. They're the good guys. They're looking for bad guys. There's the occasional minor violation of U.S. law, but even that's arguable. There's a judge in New York who said what they're doing is perfectly lawful. I think the judge...
Well, as long as you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about.
No, I think the criticism of the NSA is criticism for the sake of it, and a lot of it's coming from pro-German people who are very worried because the NSA has really got its act together in terms of keeping an eye on what the Jerrys are up to. I should say our community partners, the Jerrys, as we are in the European Union.
Well, listen, not to change the subject, but with your intellect, which I believe is vast, and I mean that sincerely.
That's very kind of you to say. It's very kind of you. That's a much-needed boost to my fragile ego.
Well, listen, you're a gentleman, and I love that. But I've got a kind of a
my lady friend is falling about laughing.
Oh my gosh. I've got a serious question for you.
Far away. Well, I think all your questions have been serious. Again, for listeners who are listening to this interview being broadcast, are thinking, hang on, this is not the normal sort of, this guy's a bit free and frank and the old swear words crept in. I really didn't understand it was an interview, but that's fine. What I've said is truth. I'm not recanting on anything I've said. I would have adopted a different style for an interview. So I probably ought to move to slightly more pompous mode now.
Michael, I'm sometimes so frank that I scare people to death. It's just the way I am.
Even telling the truth. I mean, there's enough lies and bullshit out there. I mean, let me use a different word. There's enough lies and deception out there. I think a little bit of truth goes.
Well, bullshit is an acceptable word. You can say that on American television now.
Good. Lies and bullshit, then.
Now, my question is, with your intelligence and your intellect, what do you think the future of our country is right now?
Well, if you carry on electing Democrats, you're screwed. You're stuffed bunnies. America is running into all sorts of problems, and it's very easy from an outside. As someone who loves America, which I do deeply, I get a lot of flack over here. MI6 used to say I was far too close to the Pentagon, and I would say to MI6, how can you be too close to the Pentagon? I mean, it's just silly. They're on the same side. You know, we're allies. Come on, boys. I'm very fond of America. I am British. I don't understand baseball, and I don't expect Americans to understand cricket. But I'm deeply fond of America. I've always enjoyed my trips to America. I usually get treated much more nicely in America than I do in England. And I'm, you know, my position, my comments are informed by a deep love, and I would like to think pretty wide knowledge of America. I visited 39 states, and I hope to visit all 50 before the Germans finally get me. And the problem that America's got at the moment is essentially to do with German intelligence. The real problem is that Washington is seriously compromised. The federal bureaucracy are an absolute nightmare, and that DVD network inside the federal bureaucracy has to be dismantled in order to free America up. And I'm not getting at you guys because we have exactly the same problem for the same reason. It's the Germans won't let us govern ourselves. So we need to free up our state bureaucracies, in your case the federal bureaucracy, in our case the civil service. Immigration has to be addressed because it's undermining America's identity, and it's introducing a linguistic fault line so that America is in danger of becoming no longer an English-speaking country, but a sort of Anglo-Hispanic country. Immigrants are not integrating. They're putting Americans out of work, particularly black Americans. I was very deeply moved when a friend of mine, Ted Hayes, a black activist in L.A., showed me around Skid Row. And you may have thought, white Englishman barrister, what's he doing in Skid Row? I mean, he'll never get out alive. I was treated in a very friendly fashion by perfectly nice people who were out of work through no fault of their own because their wages have been undercut by immigrants. They've been tossed out of jobs by immigrants. Immigration, skilled, semi-skilled and unskilled labour is deeply damaging to the working class, and it's particularly damaging at the bottom end of society, and it has a general net depressive effect on wages. And this is enormously damaging for society. It's very harmful for individuals and their families, and it forces up expenditure on welfare, because every immigrant who displaces a job onto, every immigrant who puts somebody onto welfare, they're paying tax, but they're not paying enough tax to cover the costs of the welfare of the person they've thrown out of work. So that has to be addressed, and I think there needs to be greater integration of people who are already there. Illegal immigration has to be stopped. It's not difficult to do once you've got control of the border agency. Defense, America's defense budget is far too low. Huge problems building up with China. You guys are letting Chinese goods in at 1% tariff or something completely stupid. We're making the same mistake. Every criticism I'm making of America policy is identical. My criticism of the UK policy are identical. I think you should recognize Taiwan, so should we. I think there should be a free trade deal between Britain and America. I think Britain should get out of the European Union. I think that there's far too much regulation as there is in this country. I think you should break up NAFTA, bring in Canada to a joint UK, US, Canadian free trade deal, and get taxes down. There's an obsession with the belief that if you increase taxes, you increase revenue. You don't. Laffer, a great man, Arthur Laffer, demonstrated, it's called the Laffer curve, that the way to increase tax revenue is actually to reduce taxes within a reasonable range. So I think there's far too much tax, far too much regulation, definitely going down the road of Britain making all the mistakes we made after World War II for the same reasons that the Germans have seized control of the national government and are pursuing policies in bad faith designed to undermine the country. So there's a great deal that needs putting right in America, as indeed there is in Britain and Canada and Australia and Israel and the rest of the good guys.
What are your thoughts about the Muslim Brotherhood?
Oh, the Muslim Brotherhood are terrorists. I mean, they were set up by a German spy called Sani al-Banna. In my new book, Spy Hunter, which should be coming out in April, Spy Hunter demonstrates that al-Banna was a German spy and that Yasser Arafat was a German asset. He was the protege. He was one of the proteges of the Grand Mufti, who worked closely with Canaris in World War II and was one of the key drivers of the Holocaust. So the Muslim Brotherhood are terrorists. I actually back the Egyptian government. I think the Egyptians are doing the right thing. Egypt is not a democracy. It's never going to be a democracy. The choice is between the Muslim Brotherhood, who are terrorists, and the military. So as between the military and the Muslim Brotherhood, I'd go for the military every time. They might shoot you, but at least they'll shoot you nicely.
That was priceless. That was priceless. Well, you are a very intriguing gentleman, and you're a hell of a nice guy.
Well, that's kind of you to say, and vice versa. I can tell that you are a man acting in good faith. And I tell you, you've got a slightly more lively. You've probably got the liveliest interview I've ever done.
Well, I'm grateful for that, and I will not do you any wrong. I assure you.
Don't worry. The first email from Washington has already come in.
Well, I tell you what, you're going to get a lot more, because as the day goes by, I can assure you they're going to be...
Actually, this is a friendly email. It's an invitation to listen to a speech by Ted Cruz. Ted's an interesting guy. I think he may have an issue with citizenship and natural born. I'm not sure he can be the Republican candidate.
Yes, sir. You are correct.
Yeah, no, if I were advising the Republican Party, if the Republicans took my advice, I would say don't go with Ted Cruz for president or vice presidential candidate. He is not eligible, in my view. And I don't draw a distinction. When I say that Obama is not eligible, I don't give a tinker's cuss whether he's white, black, Democrat, or Republican. I actually say the same in my book about McCain. McCain wasn't eligible either because he was born in downtown Panama, in a hospital. He wasn't born on Coco Solo Marine Corps Air Station, as he claims. The hospital wasn't even built. And you don't go around Marine Corps stations and see air stations and see women giving birth all the time. It's just not usual. there's no way he was born on the air station. He was born downtown. The story.
But I thought McCain did a smart thing by going to the United States Senate and actually getting a bill passed that says he was eligible.
Well, yeah, but that bill did not amend the U.S. Constitution. That bill, the status of that bill is constitutional lawyers. I'm a constitutional lawyer. I look at that bill and I say, sniffy, don't like it. If you want to amend the U.S. Constitution, you've got to amend the U.S. Constitution. Do it properly. It has not been amended. Birth on a U.S. air base or a military base abroad does not count. I think you have to amend the Constitution to bring it in. I think it's a good idea, but until it's brought in by way of amendment, the U.S. Constitution says you have to be natural born. That means birth in a state, in my view. Birth in a territory is not sufficient. I even go so far as to say that Barry Goldwater, and constitutional scholars in America have questioned Barry Goldwater's right to be president. Because
what about Mitt Romney?
There was never a problem with Mitt Romney because he was born in the United States as a U.S. citizen. There was an issue. There's a Mexican connection in the case of Romney. There was an issue regarding Mexico, but when I looked at Romney, I thought that he was probably eligible. I'm surprised the Republicans didn't do more background research, but of course they realized that with Obama being born in Mombasa, it didn't matter. Nobody's going to query Romney's eligibility to stand with Obama being wholly uneligible or ineligible. I suspect that Romney might not have been eligible, but there's a doubt. But on balance, I think he was. But it's not. I can't give him 100% clean bill of health. I doubt that Barry Goldwater was eligible because he was born in Arizona Territory before it became a state. He missed out by a couple of years, and in my view, you have to be born in a state. I don't think birth in a territory is sufficient. I don't think, for example, you can be born in Puerto Rico. And I fail to see how you can draw a distinction between Puerto Rico and Arizona before it became a state.
What about Marco Rubio?
He's out. No, he's out. As far as I'm concerned, he's not eligible. I think you have to look. The American constitutional requirement for eligibility to be president is very tightly drawn. You don't just have to be a U.S. citizen, which Marco Rubio is. You have to be natural born. And
correct.
Exactly. And on the most liberal interpretation of natural born, in my view, that requires birth in the United States, probably to U.S. citizen parents, but certainly birth in a state in the United States. I don't think the founding fathers would have been happy with foreign parents.
What about Bobby Jindal?
Jindal not looked at. Not looked at Jindal. He's very able. I mean, these people could all serve in a cabinet. Ted Cruz would be obviously an obvious candidate for the cabinet, but I don't think he can be a candidate for president. Incidentally, when I say that there are scholars who think that the parents ought to be US born as well, or US citizens, that's not a universal view. The majority view of constitutional lawyers in the States, I think, is that if you're born in the United States to foreign parents and you are a US citizen by reason of your birth, that is, if your status is US citizen at birth, that is sufficient, even if one of your parents is foreign. So if your father's a US citizen, you become a US citizen by birth, your mother's foreign, that's okay. That's the better view. But I have to say that is stretching a little bit from what George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and all the other great founding fathers, half of whom, by the way, were English barristers, trained in England. The barristers who drew up the US Constitution, I think, intended that both parents had to be Americans as well as the child.
I agree with you.
Yeah, but it's a minority view. The Supreme Court, I think, would go with born a US citizen in a state that was a state at the time you were born, with at least one parent a U.S. citizen.
Right now, I think the current Supreme Court we have it would approve a dog running for president.
Well, they have been a bit of a disappointment. I've got to be slightly careful. I've met a couple of your Supreme Court justices. They've all been very charming. I met the late Chief Justice, awfully nice man, before John Roberts. Very nice man. I complimented him on the decision in Bush and Gore and said I thought he'd got it right. I have met a couple of your Supreme Court justices. I saw my friend John Bolton. We've had a falling out since, which is sad because he backed Romney and he got a bit too close with respect to 41. John and I have had a bit of a falling out, which is sad, and we haven't spoken for a little while. And I've only met, I'm not saying I've met the whole Supreme Court. I've probably met no more than three of the, three possibly US Supreme Court justices. And I saw my friend John, as he then was, being sworn in by Justice Thomas, who is, by the way, very bright. I think he's actually the brightest of the court. Doesn't say much in court, but he's a very good judge, Justice Thomas.
I agree with you.
There are a couple of very powerful intellects on the Supreme Court. But I'm afraid, no offence intended, John Roberts has been a little bit of a disappointment. He's a bit wishy-washy. And Stephen Brennan, I was invited to an audience. He gave a very good speech in London a few weeks ago. I was invited to it. And there was a train strike, and I thought, oh, well, sod that. Or traffic. There were no taxis. I thought, oh dear, train strike, I'm off.
I thank you very much for what you contributed today.
Excellent. Okay, that's very kind of you. Many thanks.
And we'll talk again, may we?
Yeah, of course we may. Yep, absolutely.
God bless you, sir.
God bless you. Good night.
But here's my suggestion. Here's my suggestion. According to what you said, you stated yesterday, your two main concerns are the part about the gentleman and the offshore payment.
Yes,
that's one. And the second one is the part about Hillary Clinton being a lesbian, and you specifically stated that it was the president of the university, and of course it didn't take me long to find out who that was, and I sent you the lady's name, and you said absolutely leave her out of it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, all that being said, number one, everyone in America with any sense has understood for some time that there's a strong possibility that Hillary Clinton could be bisexual. And most Americans believe that her lover is her assistant, Huma Abedin, who happens to be the wife of Anthony Weiner, and whose parents are really heavyweights for the Muslim Brotherhood. That's who most people in America think is Hillary's lover. I have no idea if that's true or not. I don't care.
I think that's correct. I think Huma Abedin successfully honey-trapped Hillary.
Well, that could well be.
I think described as a lesbian, I think she is there's no doubt she's had a daughter, and there's no doubt she had sex with Bill Clinton on a number of occasions. So I think technically she is bisexual rather than lesbian.
Well, yeah, exactly. That was what I stated. So, to me, I don't think that's anything shocking, but what is shocking is where you say you knew someone and the gentleman's died, Leland Owens. I guess that's the Leland Owens down in Florida that you were talking about, I guess. But
yes. Have you come across Leland?
Well, I came across his obituary.
Yes, I'm afraid. Actually, I haven't seen that obituary. If you could send me that'd be great.
All you got to do is put his name in and put obituary into Google. It'll come right up.
Oh, will it? Okay, I'll do that. I was deeply saddened. I wouldn't have named him except that he's no longer with us. And I'm naming him in a positive sense. I don't speak ill of the dead unless they're the bad guys. Leland was very good people. I was enormously fond of Leland. Leland Owens. I think take the view that if you were dead, it's a shame that you should disappear into obscurity. Leland deserves better than that. So I'm very happy to say nice things about Leland. He's very well connected. He was gay himself. I think he got through to the lady in Florida through the lesbian gay community. I didn't know he was gay. I'd known him for years. I didn't know he was gay until it was actually the last time that we met.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know he was dead. I got an email from his partner.
Mm-hmm.
If I die, the bad guys are hoping to have me whacked because they're hoping to get me inside prison where I'm going to be vulnerable to Islamic radicals. If I'm assassinated, which would be very irritating, There's nothing worse than being assassinated. It spoils your whole day. Should Jerry whack me, which is the current cunning plan, because he's flinging false accusations against me. The obvious intent is to get me inside, and the obvious intent once I'm inside is I shall be stabbed in the showers with a shank by a bunch of Islamic radicals shouting Allahu Akbar. They're probably going to gangbang me first. I mean, that's the usual procedure. Should that happen, then you feel free to use the entire unedited version. By that stage, I should be dead and past caring, and I can look down benignly upon events from the great intelligence clearinghouse in the sky. Was it you who told me that the Secret Service now protect their wine glasses?
No, I didn't tell you.
No, that was somebody else. No, the CIA. It was an interesting confirmation of my intelligence that the Secret Service now protect the president's wine glasses and cutlery. They've got his DNA on them.
Well, I would imagine.
Secret Service now, they're not just protecting the president; they're now protecting his DNA.
Well, yeah. And,
yes,
that's critical.
It's actually very useful insurance, because the more conversations I have of that sort that will get released and will go viral, should I snuff it, the greater insurance I have. So I think the original unedited interview is great insurance.
You were the one that suggested an interview, that you'd be happy to do it. I called you up, hey, we're doing the interview. And then you asked me point blank, you said, are we off the record? And I said, were you talking to me? And you said, yes, we're off the record, right? And I said, no, we're not.
No, you didn't lie to me once I asked the question.
I don't lie to anybody, Michael.
But I was keen to finish the interview. Well, I'm a barrister, so I think I always have to be slightly careful in my published comments. Now, of course, the bad guys, what you're into, the other advantage to me of the unexcavated version, it's not so much libel. In practice, suing in libel, public figures can't sue for libel in the United States, because you have much greater freedom of expression.
We have the fairness situation, you know.
Yeah, and the English courts wouldn't have locus. It's not so much libel, but I'm also a barrister, so my published comments have to be restrained, and I'm very restrained, as you can probably tell, in my public comments. Should the bad guys succeed in getting me disbarred, which is what they're trying to do, then of course those restraints come off, and I do chafe under it. So if I'm no longer a barrister, it's not going to cause me too much anxiety. Because
good luck with that. That's always a real stressful situation, but good luck with that. I hate to see it.
Well, it's stressful and it isn't, because the accusations being flung against me are completely bogus, and I'm a barrister, so defending myself against bogus allegations is quite enjoyable. I mean, it's slightly silly trying to stress a barrister by prosecuting me, because it's like trying to stress a doctor by saying we're going to take you into an operating theatre.
Well, what is the old saying that lawyers in America have? They said a man who represents himself in court has a fool for a client.
Yeah, well, yes, but that rule only applies to attorneys. I'm a barrister, not an attorney.
Ah, that's true.
Exactly.
That's true. Without any documentation to what you're stating and what you're saying about this entire situation, there's really no legal benefit.
Correct.
Because the purpose of that meeting yesterday was to, one, ascertain your credibility, which there's certainly no question about your history, your track record, your credentials. Yes. There's no question whatsoever. You know that.
Yep.
You know that. Now, the fact that you made the statements about Mombasa and all of that stuff, and you don't have any documentation. There's none.
Correct. So I can supply. This is on the distribution side of intelligence, not the verification side, and the documentation stays firmly within the CIA. Indeed, I've never seen the DNA report. I've just been briefed in on the results of it.
Exactly. So I mean, from an honest, straightforward legal standpoint,
but of course there are a number of ways forward. One is for me. I've got two matters in the UK which I need to clear up, which I think will be cleared up fairly quickly. But there are a couple of ways of approaching it. One is that I could be an expert witness.
That's true.
And once it's proved that I advised the CIA, if people accept what I say, that the CIA were advised to do a DNA test, it's logical that they would, with an issue as to the presidential candidate's parentage. A DNA test is the way to establish relationships these days. It's logical to assume that somebody did a DNA test, and then it's fairly easy for a judge to conclude, yes, the CIA did a DNA test, and then the onus goes over to the CIA to produce it. And if they don't, then adverse inferences could be drawn. That's one way of approaching it. The other way of approaching it, there's no, just because the CIA have done a DNA test doesn't stop anybody else doing a DNA test. The president's DNA hasn't changed. He's not a lizard. He's not a shapeshifter. His DNA has not changed since 2008. And there's nothing to stop Congress or a court asking the president to provide DNA evidence of his claimed ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my advice. And that's the way I used to approach these issues when I was an immigration judge. That if there was an issue, I would say, right, this can be proved by DNA.
Well, I understand that, but you got to, I know you do. I mean, you realize the path that would be almost, it would almost be impossible to get that.
It would certainly entertain the media.
Oh,
but it would also be, but think about it tactically. When I used to order DNA tests, if someone refused to comply, then that was a very strong indication that they didn't believe in the claimed relationship. And the more Obama fought against providing his DNA for analysis, I mean, it's a straightforward request. It's not invasive procedure.
Yeah, but you got to understand, he spent millions of dollars keeping his records private.
I know he has. I
mean, that in itself. What's that website I found you on? The only reason to hide the truth is if you've got something to hide.
Well, exactly. He has got something to hide, and I think.
Well, yes, he does, and I know it, and you know it, and a whole lot of people know it. Yes. But guess what? There's no documentation of it. There's no.
No, I can't. No, I absolutely cannot provide because, and indeed, it would be contrary to intelligence practice to reveal hard data. The raw data just does not leave the agency.
Whenever you move, you just cut off half your face, so I can see your shining bald head. That's what I can
see. My oh, I see. Right, I moved. I'm working. I'm doing two things at once.
But whatever the case, there will be a solution, I'm sure, and it's called the voting booth. But now we have to stop the voter fraud. So that's voter fraud is another issue. We're getting that in the UK too, right? Particularly in connection with postal votes. Yeah, well, long as your person who brought down, what was it, the Bank of England? What's the old codger, George Soros?
Oh,
now that he owns the voting machines, we have a bigger problem.
Yeah, understood. I'm starting to push the boat out with the media. One of the nice things being put on trial for innocent is that you start from the position of strength, and you're not afraid of letting the public in and letting everybody know what's happening. So I really want to push the boat out on the media. I'm going to try. I'm just about to ring Bill. Well, it's a bit late now. It's just gone midnight. I'll ring Bill Gertz of the Washington Times tomorrow and ring around a few of the papers. But I don't have massive US media contacts, and I think the interest in the States is going to be particularly strong. Oh, well, the NSA, that stands off there. The NSA are the good guys. They've played a blinder on this, I tell you. And you imagine what the NSA have been able to negotiate with that in terms of budget and budget for the Pentagon. And, it's only recently, I've been a bit slow on this. I've only got an IQ of 190, so I'm a bit slow. It's only recently occurred to me that the NSA had extracted from Mike Hayden a copy of the DNA report. I'd always understood the CIA had sat on it, but of course they would have got it from Mike Hayden because I'd armed them with Mike Hayden's offshore bank accounts. Of course they would. got the DNA report. I had always thought the Pentagon had done their independent researchers, but they clearly had the DNA report as well. I mean, I was in the Pentagon. I briefed the boys in the Pentagon. I was in fairly deep into the Pentagon briefing the boys about the situation with Obama, and they made it quite clear to me that they had verified it. But I'd always understood that they'd more concentrate on things like passport records and his Occidental application and his description of himself as a Kenyan born in his book. And there's a lot of evidence out there. I don't think the Pentagon ever had the photograph in '61 of Ann Dunham not pregnant. Yeah, and I'm not sure the Pentagon, and I don't think the Pentagon. I don't believe Boeing knew the Boeing file on Ann Dunham. There's a Boeing security file, and it apparently is very, very thin. The FBI took the lead. It was J. Edgar's boys took the lead on exposing Ann Dunham.
The biggest problem has been with all of these wannabe lawyers, wannabe heroes, and there's a whole bunch of them.
Yep.
The biggest problem has been A, they don't understand the law. B, they don't have jurisdiction. C, the biggest problem of all is Eric Holder as Attorney General of the United States.
Yes.
Now, other than that, there's not really any other big problems.
No. Unless Eric Holder unless he actually snuffs it, which we're all hoping he won't.
Well, it was amazing. The guy had to be taken to the hospital the other day for shortness of breath and everything else.
That's after he saw my video, yes, apparently.
Well, it would appear, but the bottom line is the comments in the around the world were amazing. People were saying, "I hope the son of a bitch dies." I mean,
that's a bit mean. I'm not a mean person.
No, but I mean, look, there's a lot of people that feel that way. That's the way it is. Hell, Michael, there's probably a lot of folks that wish you and me would die,
Yes. Well, Al Qaeda, George Bush 41, the Germans, the DVD, joined the bloody list.
Yeah. Who are the people that call themselves the Gaia Militia? Do you know those folks?
No. I believe Gaia Militia got it from NSA. There'll be a cutout and multiple cutouts. But I think Gaia Militia...
The secret...
I've never heard of Gaia Militia. Never heard of them.
Nobody else has either. No, well,
they may be a tame little site set up by... It may be one of the NSA's tame sites.
Well, I know one thing. They've got everything you've ever done and even have a whole section devoted to you.
Yeah, but it's extraordinary because they're getting it from intelligence, I would imagine. They're certainly not getting, I can assure you, they are not getting it from me. I can assure you I did not know the video clip was going up. I can assure you that the first I heard of it was when, I think it was you. I was told at the end of last week, it's gone viral.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no question about it.
Somebody's trying to get me murdered in prison. Somebody's trying to get me put in prison. Somebody's trying to get me murdered in prison. There's very heavy pressure on me at the moment. And I've got this bogus allegation to fend off. So it wouldn't surprise me that my name, that the video clip would be put out there by someone, by a good guy in intelligence.
Yeah. Well, the Secret Vault, who put out your entire Marlboro series, that's probably your people that those folks from the intelligence community.
Well, I know the Marlboro group, but who's put out the entire Marlboro series?
They call themselves the Secret Vault.
Yeah, again, never heard of them. This is the first time I've ever been made aware of their existence.
Well, if this is any indication...
I'm not narcissistic. I keep the occasional eye on what's being said about me on the internet, particularly.
Well, if it's any indication, this might help you. You're an intelligence man. You know what clues mean. The videos that the Secret Vault have put out are in the highest form of HD quality, so that probably would indicate, at least it would to me, they're probably the people who actually filmed the Marlboro conference that day.
Well, the people who filmed the Marvel Conference, it was a film by a very nice independent filmmaker who was, he wasn't, heavily involved in the world of films, but he was professional. He knew what he was doing. And he was someone who was a member of the group. Can you just give me 2 seconds? I'm actually in the middle of cooking my lunch. I need to stop something burning.
Well, of course. Go right ahead.
There was a suspicious smell coming from the oven.
If you, Michael, if you were burning a piece of fish in New Orleans, you could call it blackened redfish and sell it for $70 a plate.
I could probably do that. Yes. Okay.
But anyway, one last thing on the secret vault. The only way that someone has a full high definition, which is 1900 pixels by 1080 pixels, the only way that they would have those is A, they would either have to have filmed them themselves, or B, they would have to gotten copies from the individual who filmed it. That's the only way they would have full HD.
Or it's been cleaned up by NSA or somebody in the intelligence.
Well, it could be, but first of all, for the NSA to get it, it's going to have to be put in their hand or whatever. But once again, it appears to be the original footage shot at the Marlborough conference that you spoke at.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's what it appears to be.
Again, I've never heard of the secret vault.
Well, just go to YouTube and put The Secret Vault in their search engine, and you'll come right to it.
Excellent. I will send you the defense case statement, which will give you the brief. That'll give you the issues in the case.
Now, you can email that to me, or you're going to put it in the chat room?
I'm going to send it by Skype.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me open up my chat window here, and I'll download it into my MS folder.
Outstanding.
Your new nickname, of course, is probably your old nickname. How many people over there call you Shrimp?
Quite a few, but my official nickname is Shrimpers.
What is it?
Shrimpers. Shrimpers. My father was Shrimpers in the RAF.
Shrimpers. That's cute.
In England, it's Shrimpers.
Yeah, well,
Shrimpers in England. In America, the shrimp.
Well, America likes shrimp.
Okay, that's fine. Well, shrimp likes America. That's not a problem.
But
I've just sent the file across. That's the defense case statement. That'll give you an indication.
I just downloaded it. Let me see here. I'll open it up while I got you just to take a look at it.
Good.
Now, the defense case statement, I'm assuming that's your statement?
No, that's not my witness statement. That defense case statement is the brief. That sets out the defense. It's a statement. It's a statement. It's not a witness statement. I don't do witness statements. I'm giving evidence in chief. It's a statement of the defense case.
Okay.
It's effectively a written pleading. It's very similar to American brief. The law in England has got very complex and very hidebound and very procedural. It's a little bit under 19th century. You can't just walk into a Crown Court and give your defence. You have to give the prosecution notice in order to help the prosecution. You've got to set out your case.
Sure. Okay. Getting back to the point at hand here. The problem that everyone has faced, particularly Sheriff Arpaio and Mr. Zullo, is the old word that you're very familiar with, jurisdiction.
Yes, of course. Well, I've followed the cases. I've read some of the judgments. It's clear that the U.S. courts, right up the Supreme Court, have just thrown up their hands in horror. They've completely abdicated their responsibility to protect the U.S. Constitution.
Well, yes, but there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons.
Yes.
Okay. The fellow at Bertha report, from what I understand, played short sections of your interview over the phone to Mike Zullo, and he immediately wanted to speak with you. And so I wanted to be sure you did get with him, and I'm glad to hear it.
No, Mike and I had a long conversation early hours this morning,
Yeah, how did you like Mike?
Oh, good man. Yeah, good people.
Boy, he's a straight arrow.
Yep, absolutely. No worries.
Yeah, he's a straight arrow. Well, good. Well, that's good. That was weird. Weird. He just dropped. It said they have NSA software messing up.
Just as we were talking about the NSA and the DIA,
Imagine that.
I love the NSA to bits. They're very nice people, and they're loyal and patriotic. In World War II, you had people like Forrestal working for the Germans. The cabinet was heavily penetrated by the Germans. Marshall was working for the Germans, and so was King. And J. Edgar was warned off, German saboteurs. The FBI knew a lot more about Ann Dunham's mother being a saboteur than Boeing. And I don't think Boeing were able to tell the Pentagon very much, other than there was a security file on Dunham's mother, and that she was suspected of sabotage. I don't know how much Boeing knew about the plans going walkies out of Wichita. It'd be interesting to know. The Pentagon don't really talk to the FBI. I mean, the Fibbies, they occasionally, they occasionally talk, but there's not a lot of contact between the Fibbies and the FBI and the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And the Fibby file on Dunham's mother, the Fibby file on Obama's grandmother is very, very, very deep. Very
well,
deep.
That was the thing that was amazing about that to me is that's the lady who died just a day or two before he was inaugurated.
Yes.
And I mean, he ran to Hawaii and he was there, I guess, I don't know, a few hours
well,
overnight.
If he sanctioned, he may well have sanctioned a hit on her. If he'd sanctioned a hit on her, he'd want to be there for the funeral. I mean, it's the first rule. I mean, when Ted Heath had Ian MacLeod, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, murdered, Ted was the first on the scene to comfort the widow, in inverted commas. He was there.
You actually think the guy would kill his own grandmother?
Well, she wasn't his grandmother. She wasn't related. Remember,
okay,
yeah, exactly. Remember, she wasn't a blood relative. She was a white woman who wasn't related.
And she knew the truth about him.
And she knew the truth about it. Absolutely. Now, Obama's a killer. I mean, he's a Muslim killer. He's not a Christian. He's a fairly violent man. He's a very, very ambitious man, and he was determined to screw America. He's ruthless. I don't think he'd stop at knocking over his own granny. And she wasn't his granny anyway.
Yeah, well.
I mean, it might have been the Germans that sanctioned it. It might have been Bush 41 that whacked her, or had her whacked.
Well, we'll never know.
Well, we will at some point, because we'll get the German files. All we have to do is roll over Germany. This is not difficult. Russia's going for the east, we're going for the west, and Bob's your uncle, as it were.
Well, interesting point.
Yeah, but there's not going to be a big war in the Ukraine, sadly. I think I don't believe in pissing about. I mean, we've pissed about for bloody years. We've been pissing about for 70 bloody long years since the end of World War II. It's about time. It's 60 years. It's about time it's stopped. 70 years. It's just a fucking nonsense. It really is. It's time we roll the bloody Jerry's over and sort this mess out. Because we're just fighting brush fires all the time. We'll put out the Ukraine and then something else will happen somewhere else. So,
yeah,
I think Vladimir, my advice to Vladimir is stop pissing about, annex the Ukraine and beat the shit out of you, annex the Crimea and beat the shit out of the Ukrainians who are near fascist bastards, anyway, no offense intended. Sorry,
Putin is making some very bold moves. There's no question about it. He
is, yeah, and God bless him. I shall say in my weekly column, God bless him. He is making some bold moves. He's making some moves, all right. At least somebody is. Finally, somebody's doing something. Finally, somebody's shooting somebody waving an EU flag. It should have happened years ago. Because we in Britain are cheering. Somebody waving an EU flag and gets shot. I mean, it's wonderful. We're all
the EU has been very bad for your country and other countries.
Well, it's cost us. It's humiliated us. It's cost us trillions of dollars. Trillions. It costs us 200 bloody billion pounds sterling a year to be a member. At least $325 billion a year. And this is just nonsense. We've lost trillions of dollars trillions of dollars. I mean, it's madness. And people's attitude to the EU is murderous. I mean, we're just ready to kill a few Europeans.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It is. No, the EU are not just despised. I mean, they obviously treat the EU with contempt. and we treat the Germans with contempt. But it's more than contempt, it's hatred. Nobody will ever come forward with hard intel or documents. The Germans, the court system in England and America is just a happy hunting ground for the Jerrys. They control, or largely control, the state federal bureaucracy in Washington and the cabinet office in England. They just get away with murder. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've been letting them get away with murder for 60 years. They just stomp all over us. Good guys get stuck in court, the intelligence agencies just sit on stuff, and they just watch and let them go down. It's very frustrating, and it's got to stop, because the Germans will not allow any country in the world to operate its own intelligence agency free from interference. They're jumping over everybody. They're constantly at it. I mean, they undermined the Ukraine. They just took over the Ukrainian services.
Oh,
the Yanukovych was just helpless. Same as the Tsar. And they keep doing it. And nobody ever tries to stop them. Until Putin's standing up to them now. But because of these idiotic proceedings where the truth is being suppressed. The bad guys know perfectly well I was right about the nuke. But because I can't introduce evidence into court, my 2 years of my life has just been wasted in pointless legal proceedings, costing thousands of pounds, tying up my time, endangering my reputation. And everybody in the entire intelligence community just watches it and just sits back and does fuck all. In terms of what I can actually introduce into evidence, I've got fuck all. Nothing. Not a single satellite photograph. Nothing I can use. I'm very cautious about being dragged into legal proceedings, knowing I will be left like everybody else is left to swing in the wind. And the problem is that the British and American intelligence are just terrified of the Germans. They're just terrified of them.
Look, Michael, that's no different than the fact that you don't have any documentation to prove Obama was born in Mombasa.
Yeah, it would make life a hell of a lot easier if intelligence agencies would get the bloody documentation out. Instead of, the US intelligence has let America swing in the wind for 7 years. For 7 years we've had this painful debate about where Obama was born. Everybody who's got it right has been mercilessly rubbished. Nobody in the intelligence community has lifted a finger to help them until a couple of weeks ago, when the NSA stepped in. The CIA have just sat there fat, dumb and happy. And they've let America be screwed, rigid, cost of trillions. I mean, the Obamacare alone, the federal defense budget has been slashed, partly because the money's been wasted on Obamacare. Hundreds of thousands of Mexicans and what have you pouring across the US frontiers. Intelligence agencies are famous for it. There just doesn't seem to be any limit to the amount of chaos, the number of deaths, the humiliation that they will let the bad guys inflict on their own society. They're just institutionally incapable of standing up to the Germans or defending their own societies. So the CIA has been watching America decline for 7 years and hasn't lifted a finger. But American society, they're supposed to be protecting. American taxpayers are paying their bloody salaries every month. It's very frustrating.
Well, I don't disagree.
That's why I'm careful. That's why I'm careful what I say on the record. The waste in the last 3 or 4 weeks dealing with bogus legal proceedings.
Well,
and no judges won't stop them. Our judges in Britain and America are either lent on, or they're terrified. Like the judges who've dealt with this birther issue. There isn't a judge. There isn't a single judge in the federal judiciary in America with balls. Not one. In 7 years, not a single judge with balls. The father was a Muslim, the mother was a Muslim. I don't believe there are any birth records in Kenya at all. I've never heard a suggestion. I've never heard a credible suggestion there are any birth records in Kenya. It was put to me by Philip Berg, an attorney in Philadelphia, and I looked at it and spotted it's fake in about 30 seconds because it had Republic of Kenya on the top.
Yeah, exactly.
The fakers didn't know that the Republic of Kenya came along 3 years later. So I don't believe there are any hospital records have been removed. The only records that would help would be hospital records, but they've been removed. I've got this idiot, bloody Orly Tates woman
having a go at me, saying I'd asked her for money to bribe Kenyan officials. I don't know where she got that from.
Mm-hmm.
Which is partly why I suggested to Orly Tates that if there's a budget, that we get a serious inquiry on the ground in Kenya. But it never happened, and now I've got Orly Tates rubbishing me. I just wonder who Orly's working for. I was warned off Orly Tates some time ago. She's a dentist. Right, she seems to spend more time doing dentistry than law.
Well, she has that way to
all I know is I wouldn't instruct her to represent me, and I wouldn't have her do my teeth.
I understand. Well, I mean, listen, Michael.
Oh, I've got the link. She's accusing me of trying to bribe officials in Kenya. Well, I'm going to have to jump all over that. That is absolutely staggering. Absolutely staggering. Contacted attorney Orly Tates on 24. He made claim as a DNA test proving that incorrect. Shrimpton was trying to get money from Tates to bribe officials in Kenya. That's crap. Shrimpton might be an opportunity seeking money for working for a joint CIA MI6 operation to try and discredit Tates.
I didn't hear what you said.
Hang on. She's quoted an email which is accurate. Where the hell does she get bribery from? Have you seen this email?
No,
I'm Michael Shrimpton, a barrister, national security. I was the CIA's original source. Philip, as a courtesy, I attached my legal national and a photo. I'd be very happy to discuss any aspect of the fraud with you. It's about time the truth came out. Well, where are the Supremes? One is being lent on, I'm afraid. Well, that's true. The Supreme Court, but it wasn't for publication.
She posted her actual letter to her?
But hang on. Where's this suggestion of a bribe? I mean, this is just crap.
I don't know.
There was discussion about putting up somebody into and I don't trust Orly Tates. I don't know who the hell she's working for.
Well, Michael, look, you're a barrister, and you know, if anybody knows all the stuff you said about Obama, about everything else and everything, that could well be the truth. And I certainly believe that you're a credible gentleman. But the bottom line comes down to the simplest thing there is.
Oh, I know. I can leave
You've got no documentation, so therefore what you're saying is nothing more than third-party hearsay.
Correct. Well, it's not. I mean, that's the nature of intelligence. What I've got is intelligence.
Right. And I mean, even Mr. Zulu, he loved talking to you. He says, "Oh, he's a great guy, nice guy." I said, "Well, does Mr. Shrimpton have anything you could use?" He said, "All he's got is third-party hearsay. He has no documentation." I said,
correct.
"That's correct."
Correct. Of course, I can tell him where the intelligence lies. I can tell him where the intelligence is.
Well, I mean, you told me. You said
that's the problem. The CIA has sat on the bloody DNA report for 7 years, and they've let America suffer, and the reputation of the agency is going to go down the shitter when that DNA report is eventually published, which it will be. They're going to look stupid.
Do they really care, Michael? Do they really care?
Well, and this is the problem I have with the CIA. The guys at the lower end care. The guys at the top on the 7th floor don't give a shit. They'll just let America suffer. The agencies, it has a string of intelligence failures behind it. This is a gigantic intelligence failure. They should have spotted it before he even became a candidate. And having done the DNA test, they should have done something. Instead of leaving it to people like me, they should have done something. Of course, there's only so much I can do without a copy of the damn DNA test. But the CIA won't release it. So and there's no chance of getting out of the CIA. We might get out of NSA.
And in the meantime, America goes down the toilet. It's very frustrating. I love America. It's very frustrating to watch. And my country's going down the toilet. But I tell you, all this weakness and crap and dishonesty and deception and this frenetic desire to cover up the truth, it just leaves people feeling absolutely fed up with officialdom in both London and Washington. And the same applies to Canada and Australia. Our countries are not functioning as democracies. Our governments are universally useless, completely incapable of standing up for our countries, completely incapable of pursuing any sort of ethical or strategically sensible course. And that's why when we get somebody like Putin who's willing to stand up to the Germans, it's a bloody relief. That's why I'm giving Putin my full backing. At least he's doing something. At least he's not just caving in and letting the Russians, at least he's not letting his country be rolled over like Cameron. You can't blame Obama for having America rolled over because Obama's not a US citizen. He has no love for America. Why should he? He's not an American citizen. He wasn't born in your country. He's never been a citizen of your country. He's been an elected official, but he's been installed by the Germans. His loyalty is to Germany and Kenya. Or, to be more precise, to his tribe. There's no such thing as Kenyan national loyalty. It's just a collection of tribes, frankly. But there we go.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.